Peace. I am Dr. Phillip Roundtree, and this is hashtag You Good Man, a men's wellness conversation, where we tap into the realities of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health for men, especially Black men, in ways that are honest, vulnerable, and rooted in community. Today, I'm joined by a brother using math as a tool for liberation, for healing, for shifting how we see ourselves. He's the founder of All This Math, my brother, Akil Parker. Peace, brother. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, what's up, man? Glad to be here.
Where it's a lot happening over there. What you got going over there?
PGW outside, cutting up the street, putting new gas lines. They're doing a lot of what is it? Community development or neighborhood revitalization or whatever they want to call it. So they got to put
Okay.
in new gas lines, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Settler colonialism going on over here too. So got to
Facts. And
put gas
we
lines
definitely
in.
go we definitely going to touch on that. But
Yeah.
before we go any further, let me ask you the most important question that I'll ask you today. How are you feeling right now? Or more specifically, you good, man?
Yeah, so it's Thursday morning, and I'm always good. I like to think I'm good every day, or at least there's a net positive. I'm better than I am bad. I'm more good than I am
Mm,
bad. But Thursdays, especially because Thursday mornings I teach my online class on the narrative platform, and that's always
okay.
very rejuvenating for me, and it's kind of fun, teaching math to adults that are very motivated to learn math the way they weren't able to learn it when they were younger, just like myself. So I'm like, I guess I'm in doing that. I'm being well with all of my teaching. I'm being the teacher that I needed when I was younger. Not to disrespect or discount a lot of the teachers I had, because I did have some good teachers,
Mm,
but I think I would have, due to time constraints within public schooling, even 30 or 40 years ago, a lot of times we weren't able to get like a full understanding, like a conceptual understanding of mathematics. So
okay.
that's what I get to provide it with narrative, and in my hystematics course, I get to mix in the Black history. Like today, we were talking about dividing fractions and Assata Shakur at the same time. You know,
Mm,
Black Liberation Army and Sundiata Acoli, and and we read some of Asada's writing, from a pamphlet that I came across from the Black Liberation Army, from like 1974. So it's some very incendiary literature. You know what I mean?
mm,
But mixing that with the arithmetic, is
okay.
something that I really enjoy doing.
So you feeling good right now? I can
Yeah,
tell.
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel the energy. I feel the energy.
yeah,
You've been in community specifically with Black folk
yeah.
through this course. Now I know what narrative is, but can you explain to the viewers exactly what narrative is? And then a little bit later, we're going to get into hystematics specifically.
Mhm. So narrative is an outgrowth of really just conversations between Dr. Greg Carr, who's a longtime scholar, studied under the late Dr. John Henrik Clark, professor at Howard University. Conversation that he started having with Professor Karen Hunter, a longtime journalist. They started talking during the pandemic, and one day they decided to hit record. And from there, these conversations they were having, they decided that it was pertinent and important to create an online learning platform. So as kind of as Doc often says, we to jailbreak the university.
Yep, that's
You know,
exactly what I was about to say too. That's
you know,
exactly what I
to,
was about to
to,
say.
to jailbreak the university. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to be a person that is one of the instructors, on that platform, and teaching my hystematics course. And there's some other courses that, like Dr. Mario Beatty, who also teaches at Howard, one of the premier scholars in Medu Neter, the language Medu Neter. So he teaches a course there on Tuesday mornings, I believe. There's a few other courses. I'm embarrassed. I should know all these names, but I don't know all the names of all the courses. But check it out. Narrative with a K, with a silent K in the front. Knarrative. Yeah.
Word. And I'm a member of Narrative slash Nubia. I've been one now for several years. I had the opportunity to take the trip to Kemet in Nubia with Dr. Carr, with Dr. Beatty. It was an amazing experience. But I will push back on that idea of feeling embarrassed, right? Like it ain't no need. First, we human.
Yeah.
Right, and second, we family, and so yeah, it's no need to have those feelings here specifically, right? And this gives individuals opportunities to further seek out the, the type of knowledge that they're offering.
Yeah.
So,
I
word.
appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, no doubt, man. Because there's a lot of things in this world that tries to hamper us, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. There's no need to do it to ourselves, and so it's our responsibility within love to push back against these type of these types of thoughts that may enter our mind from time to time. Word. So, with that being said, you grew up in Baltimore. You taught math for years here in Philly. What shaped your relationship with math growing up?
Really, well, my mother provided a very solid foundation for me in math. Um, one year, I actually ended up dropping out of kindergarten due to transportation issues, and I was homeschooled for like the remainder of that school year. And my mother, taught me some arithmetic, and then when I went back to school the following year, I kind of just was I had a good foundation and I did well in math, but I didn't really love math. Like a lot of people assume that I've always loved math, but I mean I liked it. It was cool, but it was really a means to an end. I loved the attention I would get for getting good grades and being a good student, like among my peer group, and in my family, like my grandmother's doting over me, like oh you got straight A's and whatnot. Oh, you really good at math. Like I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So I knew that okay, if I want that positive reinforcement, then I got to be good at math. But so that kind of shaped me. I mean, again, I also had some good teachers, had some good teachers throughout, and I was able to pick up on things. Also, another thing I will say is like my mom was real official with finding summer programs. So I always would do these like academic summer programs. So I would have like a head start a lot of times, and I'd get
Mm,
exposure to different math topics in these summer programs. So then when it came time for me to like be in the classroom in September, it was like I already had like a little bit of leverage.
yeah.
So that's always so to any parents listening, like definitely like try to get into as many summer programs, Saturday programs, after school programs as possible for your children. You know what I mean? But yeah, that really helped me to be able to excel in math. From a young age and through the majority of my K through 12 experience. You know.
Word. Word. Yeah, and hearing you talk about just the influence that your parents have, that your mother specifically had on you, and just your relationship with math, doing finding community programs and such. It reminds me of my daughter, who's now 16. She's in 11th grade. Her mother was a math teacher for a very long time. She was a math teacher at CP. Now she's at mastery, but now she's in an assistant principal role. But math has always been her thing, right? And that's something she always ensured that our daughter was mindful of, and make sure she had good grades, make sure she knew what she was doing. Like I believe she's in trigonometry now,
Okay.
because they switched her, they had her in something else. And I'm like, huh? Trigonometry. I said, listen, baby, listen. When you need some help with writing, holla at your boy. I can't tell you anything about a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You know what I mean? I can't tell you that, but I could talk to you about thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and and I can help write your way out of a brown paper bag. But that just reminded me, and now thinking about how this will impact her and the skills that she's developing, how this will serve her going forward. So
Mhm.
having that experience and growing up with this early exposure to math, what made you want to teach it to others?
I needed a job. Had a baby on the way.
Word.
So it was an economic necessity. I went to college, majored in finance. Never had any intention of becoming an educator. I bought into the negative propaganda, the false propaganda. Like these kids are crazy. I don't want to be in the classroom with these quote unquote these kids, right? Even though they're our kids, they're from our community. So I bought
Mhm.
into that as a youth, and I had aspirations of originally going to Wall Street and stealing money and resources legally. Under the guise of like investment banking or like
Mhm.
equities trading and whatnot. That didn't work out. I ended up as a bank examiner for the FDIC in Delaware, in Claymont, Delaware, which was one of the reasons I came to Philly after college. I graduated from Morgan State, and that wasn't a good fit. I was only there for a year. Then I was just kind of just looking for a job. Like I said, I had a child on the way, And I started out, doing substitute teaching and a little bit of tutoring for this agency. And then that led to me having a long-term substitute position at Mariana Brissetti. And this was like the spring of 2005. It was the geometry teacher for the 10th graders. He took a leave of absence. So they needed somebody for the whole fourth quarter. So that was my first time really like in a classroom, like on a regular basis. I was a sub, but I was a long-term sub, which is kind of awkward because you're a sub, so you don't get the respect that a full-time teacher would get. But then you're going to be there every day, for like 2 months. So it's a little strange. But yeah, I decided to stick with it and persevere, and I've been able to just get better at it. I was overall good at mathematics, like I said, in my K through 12 experience. So, and also people told me that, like, as a black man, if you can teach math, then you'll have some opportunities. So I took advantage, and I looked into that. And after I was a long-term sub, then the next school year, fax is back in the day, I was still using fax machines. Faxed my resume out to a lot of charter schools around Philly, and one of them said, yeah, we need somebody. And it was World Communications Charter, which the building is still there, but the school is no longer in operation, right there at Broad and South. So that was where I started as a full-time Algebra 2 teacher. Yeah, I had 3 sections of Algebra 2 and 1 section of elementary functions, which really was Algebra 1/Algebra 2, because the students really weren't ready for elementary functions.
Okay.
But yeah, that's when I really started, and I just been progressing ever since, up to the point of starting all this math.
And so that's what I want to transition into, because you could have stayed in the classroom forever, right? You could have retired, got that good pension, like the elders be talking about. Listen, get that good city job. You know what I mean? Work there 20, 30 years, get your pension, and go ahead. But you left to build all this math. So what pushed you to create something of your own that's specifically for the community?
It was gradual. It was a gradual, kind of like what it's like gradual abolition act. But it was kind of gradual. But also just like a lot of reading. Like really, it was like just reading about African history, African American history, studying political science, watching a lot of Amos Wilson lectures, and studying Kwame Ture and people like that, and then understanding the necessity of our people being more self-reliant and controlling our educational spaces and educational opportunities. And I was able to see that I would never be able to be the type of teacher that I felt that I needed to be in the spaces where I was at as a classroom teacher, like in the school district of Philadelphia, or even in one of its charter schools. So I wanted to figure out a way to provide some type of independent education, because I ultimately think that that's what our people need. I think we need a vast network of independent African-centered schools for our children. So short of that, I wanted to create something where, and again, like when I started this, I didn't really know, that it was going to end up like this. I kind of was just learning as I go. What they say, learning to fly the plane, while you on it, it was that type of thing. And when I left the school district of Philadelphia, I was doing math tutoring. I was doing it in person, and then when the pandemic hit, that became virtual. And then I was doing the adjunct work. I was adjuncting at LaSalle University, teaching math methods. So that introduced me to the new math that a lot of parents complain about. And I used to complain about it too, right? Because I was like, why we got to do it this way? Like, so I understand the complaints and the concerns of parents. But once I learned it, the Common Core math, or AKA new math, then I was like, oh, this actually makes sense. This actually makes the algorithm that I memorized when I was 8 or 9 actually make more sense. And this also connects to the higher level math, the algebra 2 and the trigonometry, like you mentioned. That makes make more sense now, because now foundationally, the arithmetic, I understand it more as a concept. So, then I was, I also had the opportunity to teach math methods courses at Cheney, and I always wanted to, teach at a historically Black college. I'm a graduate of historically Black colleges, and I studied and learned about Octavius Cato. So then, he's one of my intellectual heroes. So, and he was a math teacher, at the Institute for Colored Youth before it changed its name to Cheney University, of course. But yeah, just a steady progression of understanding the necessity of mathematics, and it being like a necessary tool. And then also recognizing that so many people have challenges with it, then I just decided to, make that my life's work to help people understand math and help our
Got you.
community understand math.
Got you, got you. And I want to speak to that point because you brought up Octavius Cato, right? And just what you're highlighting is math as a tool for liberation,
Hmm.
right? So you've said that math is more than numbers; that it's
Hmm.
about freedom. So let's talk about hystematics, where history and math come together. Why is it critical for Black folk, for Black children specifically, to participate and understand math in combination with history?
Well, I think combining it with history gives it context, right? It kind of puts a story behind it. A lot of times when math is taught, it's taught as an abstract subject that doesn't really have any relevance once we leave this classroom, right? But with a hystematics approach, you're actually creating like mathematical word problems based on text or based on information. Like in the hystematics summer program I run down in Baltimore in collaboration with the William J. Watkins Senior Educational Institute. We just take books and we use the book as a baseline to create math word problems from. Like in the first year of the program, Asada, her autobiography was one of our books. So for 1 week out of the 5 weeks of the program, I went through the book and I just like in the text and I just found quantitative information. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do word problems dealing with arithmetic. We're gonna do word problems dealing with y equals mx plus b. We're gonna do word problems dealing with systems of equations. Just pulling from books. So it's a way for them to, for the student to learn both. You're gonna learn the history and you're also gonna learn the mathematics, but you're also gonna practice, critical reading, because that's one thing I also see as very necessary. And that connects directly to the mathematics, because oftentimes when students are doing poorly on standardized testing, it's not always because of a lack of understanding of the techniques and the technical aspects of math. It's their inability to critically read the
Mhm.
word problems. So, we got to like really merge those two areas, the reading and the mathematics, because you really can't be a math person if you're not a reading person. And some
Yeah.
people believe that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As an educator myself, I do find that, right. I always push this idea of critical thought and how important it is. I don't necessarily care about it, the profession, from a capitalistic standpoint. I always tell my students that I care that you're working with real people. Right, that
Mhm.
matters to me, and I need you to be able to think critically. Because if you could think critically when it comes to whatever we're in conversation about, that's not going to only serve you in your chosen profession, but that's going to serve you when you're in the grocery store, where you're navigating family issues and so forth, right? And it seems like you're taking that same approach when it comes to math. And so I have a question that I've been thinking about. What happens to a young person when they realize this is for me?
It becomes easier, and easier in the sense that you become the young person becomes more motivated, and also they respond to the difficulty in a different way. Like a lot of our children are conditioned through a lot of programming, a lot of negative propaganda, the constant barrage of like negative propaganda, like math is not for you, math is irrelevant, math doesn't matter, you're never going to use it in life. They constantly are exposed to that. So when you sit in a math class and then you get a problem that's difficult, which will happen, which is normal, which is customary, right? It's going to be difficult at times. Then you just shut down because you feel like, oh, well, see, I told you it's not for me, right? But when you realize it's for you, and it's like, okay, well, this is difficult. I didn't get it this way. Let me fix that. Let me try to understand it. Let me do it again. Let me do another problem. Give me another problem. It's kind of like when you think something is for you, you have this spirit of perseverance.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, like basketball is difficult, football is difficult, but if you think it's for you, you keep playing. A video game, you get a new video game, it's like you're not gonna be good at it at first. You might get cooked, you know what I mean? But you're gonna still keep playing because you think it's for you. So that piece is very important. Like, having these explicit conversations with, not just the young people, but their parents. Because oftentimes parents will pass on this idea of the irrelevance of mathematics because they project their own educational traumas and
hmm,
educational discomfort from their own experiences. And then the child might say, well, you know what? My mom isn't good at math. My dad is not good at math. And, so I have these two parents that are self-proclaimed to be deficient at math. But this house is pretty nice. They both got cars. I always got, meals, you know what I'm saying? I get new Jordans when they come out, so, maybe I don't need math neither, right?
Mm.
But and that becomes problematic because we're not taking into consideration that perhaps the opportunities that your parents were able to secure while being deficient at math, at certain levels of math, may not be available for these subsequent generations, right? Especially when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and the effect that that's going to have on.
Yeah. So as you talk about just the impact on community, how has this journey shaped just your own understanding of manhood and wellness specifically?
Um, just being able to see, well, in terms of wellness, I guess I've been able to work through, like, it's been kind of therapeutic for me in ways because
Mm.
for the majority of my childhood in math classes, I did well, but I had some rough patches. There were some topics that some content within algebra 2 or in calculus that I didn't really get. And that's why I enjoy so much, like, helping other people learn those topics and, putting video content on my YouTube channel, like, about those topics. Cause I remember when I didn't know how to do this. So I used to, like, kind of be fearful of, like, logarithms or whatnot. Right. But now I know how to do logarithms. So now I love logarithms now. So, and also just a feeling, just having that feeling of accomplishment, and the feeling
Yeah.
of overcoming a deficit, and, converting a deficit into a strength, and also being a person in the community that, people can reach out to and call upon. I get, DMs and on Instagram, like, do you have a video on this type of problem? Or, somebody text me or hit me up like, yo, we're trying to do this homework, with our son, and we don't really get it. We don't really understand these instructions. And I'm like, send me the pic, send me the pic of the problem. And I enjoy being able to, like, provide, to the community in that way. It's really, really fulfilling.
Yeah. So speaking of community, as we get ready to wrap up, we know that our people specifically, right, black and brown folk, we're experiencing so much violence, poverty, and just overall barriers. What role do you see math and education more broadly playing in our overall healing?
So I think about this Malcolm X quote, something that he learned from studying under Elijah Muhammad, where he said that, of all of our studies, history is the most equipped to reward our research. So from my experience with math, what I say is, like, I build upon that, and I say that of all of our studies, mathematics is the most equipped to develop our critical thinking ability and our analytical reasoning ability so that we can become problem solvers. A lot of the problems that we have individually and also as a community are due to the fact that many of us don't know how to recognize problems. We think stuff is sweet when it's actually a problem. Like, nah,
Yeah.
bro, that's not cool, bro. That's not supposed to be like that. But you have to have a certain level of awareness and discernment and critical thinking ability to recognize a problem. Further, after you recognize a problem, or even somebody tells you something is a problem, you got to know how to solve it. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't have problem solving skills, and that gets into conflict resolution is a problem solving skill. It's a type of problem solving that a lot of people don't have. Oftentimes we make poor decisions as young people, even as adults, because we never develop problem solving. And what I want people to understand is that going into a math class and doing math problems, whether it's arithmetic, algebra, trigonometry, geometry, calculus, you're practicing the act of problem solving, which is a transferable skill. It's very
Mhm.
transferable. So it's not just about, well, I'm only going to use this in this class, and once I pass this class, then it's done for. No, it is affecting your brain. It is developing your brain in a certain way, just like how, excessive overuse of devices has a way, there's like a neuroplasticity that takes place, and it rewires our brains and kind of dumbs us down, right? Partaking in skills such as, like, doing mathematics or reading complex text can help to make us, more intelligent, more thoughtful, more creative, right? So I want people to think of math differently, as not just like this necessary evil that kind of how it's marketed to us, like it's just this class I got to pass, but I'm never going to use it again.
Yeah.
And even in terms of that, what I want us to start thinking about is, in this type of society that we live in, which is very competitive, even if you say you're not going to use it, I want us to take a moment and think about the people that are using it, the people that will use it, and then what are they going to do with it? Because we
Mhm.
have people that are going to get the bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs in mathematics, and then go work for think tanks. They're going to go be working for government. They're going to be working for private industry, and they may be in there with their math skills using it to create algorithms that are going to affect our lives anyway. It's kind of like similar to how some people may say, well, I ain't into politics. Well, bro, politics is into you
Regardless,
because, yeah,
exactly.
So
Exactly.
the people that have the math skills, they're making decisions and creating programming that is going to affect your life regardless. So you don't want to set yourself up for, what I kind of like this type of asymmetrical warfare where it's like, I don't know the math that they're using to dictate the confines and constraints of my life. So you want your children to have that level of awareness so they can, kind of can compete basically.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, man, that's powerful. We were talking beforehand, like, man, we got to do the part two. That's what everybody say on podcasts or shows as we run out of time. So I'm gonna say that to you, brother. Got to bring you back. We got to do the part two. It's just been, such a wealth of information. Again, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your journey and your mission with us. Thank you for caring about Black folk the way that you do. For those of you who are watching, you could check out Akil Parker's work at allthismath.com. Support it, spread it, let it remind us that brilliance belongs to us. And remember, when it comes to men's mental health and wellness, the road isn't easy, but it's worth it. Peace.
Peace.